loud. There we go.
Cool.
Sui, how are you?
Okay.
Good to see you. Hi, Adeline. Hi, Amber.
I'm
Hey, Dan.
Hello.
All right, Jonathan, I think this was everybody, right?
I think so, yeah. Which
Well,
is
you-
good. Means we get to get really, really in depth tonight. Very, very much looking forward to this.
Cool. You want to kick us off?
Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about thought-shaping questions. One of our favorite topics. So pretty simple format. Michael's going to go over thought-shaping questions, give a quick refresher on what they are, how to deploy them, how you want to structure them, and then we're going to actually go through an exercise where we work on creating a thought-shaping question for a particular situation that we're dealing with. And then we're all going to go through this exercise. What's interesting about thought-shaping questions is you actually want to plan them a little bit in advance. A big part of their impact comes from knowing that you're going to deploy them and then building this conversation around them till you get to the point where you know it's going to be a maximum impact. And the idea here is, as we said in the LinkedIn post, everyone should have come with like a conversation or a meeting or an event that is upcoming that we're going to talk about and use as an example of like how to actually create some thought shaping questions to really make sure you get the results you want. So I'm pretty amped.
Beautiful. Cool. So let's dive right in. So thought shaping questions are formally what the Black Swan Group has called calibrated questions. And they're basically what or how questions that are supposed to provoke deep thought. So if you've watched the interview that I did with Brandon, he actually gave a really, really good example of how you should consider using thought shaping questions. And he went on to explain that ditch the pitch, right? So stop thinking about value propositions and explaining yourself, right? Use a thought shaping question instead to make the counterparty feel like they're the ones that actually led you to that point. So he talked about, something that they identified was as part of their offering was follow-up sessions. So they would do a training and, follow-up sessions were something they identified was, extremely valuable for their customers. So instead of saying to customers, what we suggest is having a follow-up session to make sure you get the most out of the training, they instead replace that with thought shaping question, and they would ask the customer or the counterparty and say, what are your plans moving forward on making sure that your team gets the most out of this training? So a what question is designed to reveal challenges, and it makes your counterparty feel like they're in control, right? Feel like they're the ones that are providing the plan on how to actually move forward. So I'll pause there. What questions do you guys have? What are your thoughts?
I have one question. It seems like earlier, from what I remember, they always said the labeling is less threatening and it's more effective, and that's what I had in mind. So I hardly ever use these thought shaping questions. So what is the kind of the benefit that we move into this way, the methods?
They're designed to provoke thought, right? If you're asking a regular question, yeah, they've moved away from simple question asking, and they've do what you call asking labels. So
yeah,
it seems like you have an idea of what your biggest challenge is.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a little less threatening, a little less feeling like a interrogation. that's why, as Jonathan alluded to before, these are something you should prepare beforehand. If there's something that you feel like you want to explain to the counterparty, you put it in a what question.
Okay. Thanks.
Now, of course, on the flip side of it, there's the how question, and how questions are designed to reveal implementation.
Okay. So you shouldn't
So-
ask it too soon before we thought it out. Is that right?
I guess it depends. It depends on where you're at in the negotiation and what you're.
Got it.
If you got into a point where you have enough information and implementation is something that is imminent, then you should probably throw out a how question with the word vision or envision. How do you envision moving forward here?
Okay. Not necessarily in the solution mode.
Right. If you're working towards identifying a problem, maybe the how question isn't the right time for it.
Okay. Got it.
But yeah, you want to use the how question. I think they're huge fans of the word vision. That triggers like some thought in your head once you hear the word vision.
Mhm.
So I would consider those how questions. Once you're thinking about implementation, there's no such thing as a yes without a how. That's something that they often talk about. So just to recap, right? You want to ditch the pitch. If you're thinking about explaining something to someone, reword it in a question, in a what question, and let the other person almost map out what that looks like for you, right? Give them the illusion of control.
Okay.
Jonathan, any thoughts there?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that was a really great question. It's almost by nature less comfortable than a label or a mirror and match. But the trade-off is that many of the conversations we have that are in the format of a negotiation are not encounters that are happening off the cuff. You're not necessarily going to be planning out thought-shaping questions for when you order your coffee. But when you have meetings, when you have big conversations, there is always some level of prep work that you put into those. And the idea here is that these thought-shaping questions are really based on the most important elements of that discussion. As Michael said, the how in many cases, right? If you're a salesperson and you're looking to close a deal, the thought-shaping question can really be deployed to help understand what the buying process is going to look like, uncover those roadblocks, get a real and true understanding of things like timeline. But it can also be used in a number of other different ways. We're going to go through an example in a bit, which I'm going to just pull from my own life, and we're going to workshop exactly what the right thought-shaping question is. But it gives you the ability to, as Michael said, get from point A to point B with you knowing what those steps are probably going to be in a way that has your counterparty leave with the feeling of complete control, that this is their idea, this is their initiative, they've suggested it. And maybe where you get to will be a little bit different from where you envisioned it. But because it's their idea, it does all sorts of great things like boost commitment, follow through. There's a tremendous number of benefits.
Seems like also along the way you could unearth black swans, that if you have your direction, you tell them this is how we're going to be, then you only have what you came into the negotiation with. But if you let them lead it, it could unearth those. Yeah,
they're essentially closing themselves. That's your goal, right? There's also a few other good calibrated questions or thought shaping questions. If I were to ask you a question, it's always good to respond with, what makes you ask? Or it seems like there's a reason you're asking that. The question behind the question, right? It's very easy for us to get into kind of reply mode and just quickly try and answer it. But most of the time we don't have context of where that question's coming from. So I think that's some really good. I've gotten into the habit of asking that question. It seems like you have a reason for asking that, or I'm making sure that your tone is you have some inflection there. Seems like you have a reason for asking that. That makes it a little more curious sounding and not as combative.
So another quick question. You mentioned the Black Swan Group is moving away from calibrated questions. Is there ever a place for calibrated questions?
So the calibrated questions are just are the former version of the thought shaping question. So I think they're pretty similar in nature. They've just
Okay.
evolved to, I guess, rename them to thought shaping questions.
Okay, so it's not so much like throw out that old skill, but just here's a new kind of emphasis with that skill, kind of a new perspective on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of areas that you can deploy them. We just went over a few of them. I think we talk about proof of life. How do we know that your team is on board with something? I think that's really another good area you can ask. This way you can kind of uncover if there's any stakeholders behind the table that might need to get involved, or who else is involved in the decision-making process. Yeah, I think like a lot of the tools, it really depends. What's going on, Dan?
Yeah, I was listening to a recent interview with either Brandon or Chris, and they learned that using these tools in the business world, they learned that one change would be that assertives don't really like calibrated questions. And it kind of makes sense because I'm kind of an assertive, and when I get how and what questions, I'm like, really? Like, you don't know? Like, it's easy, common sense, come on.
So what is their strategy around that? Is it an asking question? Is it like it seems
More
like
labels, labels and mirrors for assertives. Mirrors would just cut their throats with mirrors. What he was saying.
Got it. So using label and mirrors to gather as much information first, and
then essentially have the assertive come up with the solution. Because with the calibrated question, it's kind of like they get a whiff of something's off. He's just saying that he's been noticing in the business world that calibrated questions aren't working very well with assertives.
I'm curious, how do you leverage calibrated or thought shaping questions during the sales cycle?
I feel definitely work well with accommodators, because they want to solve your problem and the world's problem. Now the problem with them is implementation, where that's where the how and yes comes in. I always identify usually the types by what I call laying the fly trap. After my accusation audit, I'll lay it with a dynamic silence. So the accommodator, they typically do jump in with, is everything okay? And the assertive typically land right on the first 2 seconds of the fly trap. And the analyst, he lets that fly trap sit there for 8-10 seconds while they're thinking.
What's your go-to calibrated question?
What would be the optimal solution? What would be the optimal solution? Because typically there's only one common sense solution. They just don't want to face it and acknowledge that. I do got to do that. Unfortunately, didn't want to admit it or acknowledge it, verbalize it.
That made me think about how have you used loss aversion with a calibrated question, like something like, what happens if you guys don't change, or what happens if you guys don't solve this problem? Do you have any experience or?
Yeah, I always say, what's wrong with staying in the small house for 3 more years? And they're like, well, we're going insane in here. I don't see how that's even possible to stay here more than a year or 2. I go, well, what do you think we should do? I think I should put it on the market. Then that's when I get into instructions of, well, here's the best way to do it.
Got it. So really highlighting that the potential loss with a what question.
Right. In a lot of practice scenarios, people say when I get into pulling things from them, like at the end, I agree, look, I'll give you an iPad for all this. Now I'm like, I changed my mind. I'm just gonna give you an iPhone 4. I'm like, oh, like that hits them even harder. You're reducing what they're gonna get, and it gets them into desperation,
Interesting.
which is action.
Yeah.
Because most people act out of desperation or inspiration, and realistically, not many are inspired by things.
Dominic, what are your thoughts? How do you leverage calibrated questions?
Sorry, you said Dominic?
Yeah.
For me? Okay, sorry. I just wasn't hearing well. Okay. Actually, sorry, 1 second. I also like the labeling situation first, and I was just thinking when I had a huge problem, and Chris mentioned that we shouldn't use the question why, but if I have a problem and I would like to reflect it backward for why don't we want to solve this problem or something like that, because then hopefully they will start to think and collect ideas why should we really make it.
So leveraging a thought shaping question to essentially have them map out a solution to the problem.
Yes. Actually, I don't really have too much experience with these new techniques because I read the view of the book only 2 months ago, so I didn't have too much experience to test it in real life situations. But I started slowly, so and some of them are working.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like you're on a trajectory of growth here.
Yes, hopefully.
Cool. All right, Jonathan, you want to dive into some real life problems?
Yeah. So we'll use one right from my life for a conversation I'm preparing. The background information, I'll keep it very short. We have a process at work that was a Band-Aid solution. And as our project has been increasingly successful, the amount of time taken to implement this Band-Aid solution has ballooned from about 4 to 5 hours a quarter up to 33 in best case scenario. And this is a thing that I'm having to do by myself. So the question is, of course, the goal of my conversation is to have this thing be automated or sent somewhere else. And obviously my gut reaction is to lead with, look, here's the stats. If we continue to extrapolate this out with program success, this is going to be something that takes up an inordinate amount of someone's time. So we need to make automating this a priority. So the question then is, how can we use a thought shaping question to arrive at a better outcome that has me looking like a rock star and a hero?
Well, I would turn it on you. What would you want to explain to them?
Sure. That this process is only going to get more labor intensive as the program continues to generate success, and that it's essentially manual data entry. So it's incredibly low impact work, low skill work. It feeds into important dashboarding functionality. And in theory, it's something that we could either look at automating or potentially do without the dashboards until we can automate it.
Okay. Anyone want to give a crack at it before I jump in?
Well, another quick question: who does this? Who has to input and spend that
Me,
30 hours
I
a
have to do
quarter?
it.
Okay,
Me.
one that just came to mind would be something like, how would you like me, or what would be the most effective uses of my time?
It's a pretty good one.
I was thinking, what are your plans to reduce the amount of manual work involved to accomplish this project?
That's a good one too. The thought shaping question that I'd put together, I'll throw it out there, is what's our plan for the long-term sustainability of this process?
Say that again.
What is our plan for the long-term sustainability of this process?
Yeah, I feel like you might want to get a little more specific with it. That's,
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm being vague because I don't want to, that's just me being an accommodator and not wanting to make people uncomfortable, right? Because my thought shaping question focuses exclusively on the success of the project, as opposed to the fact that they need to make a decision and put a different type of resource into this.
So one that just came to mind is, how much time do you want me manually inputting data per quarter?
That's a good one.
or what's your vision for automating this in the future?
What's your vision for automating this in the future? That's a good one too. On the same lens, I looked at like growth projections, and it's basically a full working week of work. If the growth projections continue into next quarter, it's a once a quarter task. What are our plans to automate this? I like that one.
Or
I like
vision?
that one.
Throw a vision in there.
Yeah, what's your, I'm sorry, yeah. How do we envision this process being automated?
Yeah. Or what's
So,
your automating?
yeah. What's your vision for automation? So that's the first piece, right? That's the hardest piece. The thing that we want to talk about is how bluntly, how John Drew doesn't have to do this horrifyingly brain burning thing, which I'm going to have to spend part of Saturday doing because it takes so long. So now that I know what we want to have be the thought shaping question, now we can start looking at the other pieces of the puzzle that we want to have surfaced before I ask that question. So the idea is that it's pretty easy to go in and say, look, we have a problem. We have this really manual process. It's taking a huge amount of time. It's not a good use of my time. How do you plan on automating this? That's a valid thing to do. But if we wanted to do this in like the most elegant, perfect way, we have the other pieces of the puzzle come out through labels and other tactics, or just naturalistically, or even brought up by the boss in the situation.
Sorry, I may have one more idea to question this by emphasizing the loss. For example, how long do we want to lose and waste time for this manual work? Also, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it will be a manual work for the eternity, and we need to
bingo, I
repeat
got it. Bingo. How can we avoid burnout?
Can we put like this?
Are you going to go hire somebody for, you can't hire anybody for 15 an hour nowadays. Everybody wants 20. So you got to automate.
From my experience, we don't jump into automation right away. In general, we are thinking of optimization. So should I ask what other way have you thought about doing it differently?
I like that.
I love that. What is our vision for alternatives to this process?
Yeah.
Alternative solutions, yeah.
Alternative solutions, because that does open the door to him saying, I think we can probably get away with not having this one Salesforce dashboard that gives us this one piece of information, which would be great for me. So I really like that. I really like that a lot.
Yeah, and then you could follow, based on his answer, you could kind of, whichever way he goes, think about a few labels that you might be able to follow up with.
Yeah. So then in
Thank-
terms of structuring the conversation, the thought process that jumps into mind is starting off with the success of the project and talking about some of the metrics. It's interesting. It looks like we're actually seeing this many more users over last month.
Yeah, or you might want to consider an accusation on it and be something like, I have a really difficult question, and this might even seem like I'm not committed to the project.
Mhm.
What alternative solutions, or what's your vision for alternative solutions to XYZ?
This might sound like I'm complaining and like I don't want to do my job.
Yeah,
I love that.
Jonathan doesn't have the balls to spit out an
I
accusation.
do. In fact, I'm going to do it on Monday. You just watch, because I'm literally going to have to spend the whole weekend doing this completely unnecessary action. And then I'm going to roll up full of anger and exhaustion, and then we'll do it, but I'll do it in a calm way. And I will post on LinkedIn and I'll say, here's how the conversation went.
Well, I think you should record it on your phone, and just so that you can prove to us that you actually did it.
Oh my God. Okay. I won't post it online because my boss might join the group at some point, and that would be an awkward moment. Great news. Okay. So actually I'll do that Tuesday during our one-on-one, and it'll be great. So that's me. Now I have an action plan. We have a when, we have a how. And in theory, this means that in 3 months, I'll be whistling happy tunes instead of looking at my completely imploded weekend.
Well, yeah, I think you should consider a few labels as a follow-up to what he might say after that. Something like, it sounds like you feel like this is a good use of time, or something like that, or it sounds like this project is really important to you.
Sounds like this data is really valuable.
Yeah. And then hang on that first label. If anything that Derek taught us from the last session is to really dig into that one.
Sounds like this data is really valuable. And then that word valuable triggers things like time value, valuable employees, how valuable, which is more valuable. Great. Okay, so that's sort of the format for the rest of the evening, right? We're going to come in, we're going to have a bit of background on a problem. We're going to go in, we're going to come up with a thought shaping question and some of the supporting techniques. And the idea is that all of our brave volunteers will leave with a game plan of how to achieve their maybe not wildest dreams, but the best conversation that they've been not looking forward to. So who wants to go first?
I think Adeline, you should go.
Okay,
So talk to us about this.
I'm hearing some feedback. I need to fix something here because there seems to be feedback.
You sound good.
Okay,
to
Jimmy.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just carry on because I do hear some feedback from my side. Should I be your manager or the one?
Yeah,
John.
I don't know that we're going to do a live role play. I think just outline the situation, and we'll all brainstorm together on how we might be able to effectively ask some thought shaping questions and what comes after that to help you get to your outcome that you desire.
Oh, okay. Well, actually what happened was I did have some things similar like this, and I did use the calibrated question of what's your vision for the project, and the person actually made a black swan to share with me how he was positioning the project. So that worked out very well. So if we want to look for scenario, basically it's about getting a promotion for a job.
Okay. So you asked what his vision was, and then how did he respond?
Yeah, it turns out that because he is a interim manager, so he shared that he is not looking to change the situation in the group. So it's keeping the status quo. But what's good is that he laid out what's underlying his position.
How did you follow up after he gave that answer?
I should have said more about labeling. It sounds like things are not going to change further, but
Right.
I didn't, I have to say.
Okay. Well, now you know, right? Now
Yeah.
learn. You probably got so excited with his answer that you just kept talking.
Yeah, but actually we switched topics because we started to talk into details about the project. I want to bring something in, sorry, back to John, because there's something I like to bring in case there is a discussion where this person doesn't see your view to improve the situation. So you could make a contrasting statement because, for example, you could say on one hand, we want to be efficient and productive. On another, we have a task which has ballooned 400%, if I got it right, 8 hours to, I don't know, 33 hours. These two things conflict with one another. How is what I'm seeing wrong?
Yeah, or what am I missing?
Or what am I missing?
I think that's this. What am I missing is a good no-oriented calibrated question mix. Yeah, John, you could consider that. You could say something like, you know, I'm working on this project, which is taking me X amount of time. Something along the lines of what Jacob just provided in the chat.
I like that.
And basically be like, what am I missing here?
That's really good.
Cool.
What am I
All right.
missing here?
So key learning for Adeline is to make sure you have a follow-up after your calibrated question is to make sure you have some labels prepared. Who wants to go next?
I can jump in on that. No one else wants to.
Cool.
So the situation is project at work. I'm working on developing a product. The design work had to restart. And so the project will be delayed by several months and possibly miss the window in which they wanted to launch that. My bosses are out of town this week. And so when they get back, I get to meet with them and break the bad news to them. And then to work with them to find a solution and work out a new timeline for it.
Okay. So what would you want to explain to them?
That the main thing of this product won't be ready in time if we're wanting it to basically to meet all the market requirements that have kind of come to light recently, that to meet all those requirements, we won't be able to launch it in the window that they had originally wanted.
I just typed up, what are your plans to deliver this project on time to ensure that we meet the market requirements or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Just explain.
I like that. Or even one that came to mind, I kind of came in prepared with, is just how bad will it be if we have to push back the release date?
Normally, because I have been a project manager for my life, but for whoever asks this kind of questions, first of all, I will be very mad. But the second is that, what is your major challenge, and can we prioritize it to have the major things and whatever? But the second part, I shouldn't even say that. But well, what was your major challenge?
What were my major challenges with this?
Yeah,
so it's a plastic injection molded part, so there's some long lead times involved, and so we've got to finish the design before we can send it off to the supplier to then produce all the parts. And so the design work had to restart, which then just basically it's on the critical path, push the end date back.
Yeah, I think this also applies to Jonathan, is maybe a question like, how can we realign priorities to ensure that, you know, we can deliver this project on time? Because that sheds maybe a little more positive light that like you're actually trying to deliver it on time. And for you, Jonathan, it could actually, you know, talk about realigning priorities, make him think about that you're working on other things. Like, do you really does he really want you spending time on this manual data input or whatever you have to do? So how can we how can we realign priorities to ensure that we're able to deliver this project on time?
And or how can we help you? What do you expect the other team members can help?
So to ask them that, like, what can we do with a team to, or like,
Yeah,
how can we refocus the team or
right.
prioritize it? Let's see that. The other thing is that if it hadn't become so complicated, in the end, it will be a better product, but it's more complicated to develop it now. So it's going to be really challenging to hit that original date, and I'm not optimistic about it. And so what I want to like ask or explain or something is just like, we can do this, we can create this product, but the deadline will have to move back. Which do you want more, the deadline or all these features?
In
Yeah.
my entire career, I worked for IBM. We never moved the deadline. Either you die or so I think we normally as a team, we will start to say, okay, where is the priority? Where is the challenge? And how can we throw in more resources, just help you kind of push the thing out of the door?
Yeah. That's one challenge. It is a small company. There's like 10 total here, and me and like 3 other people working on this project. So there's not a whole lot of other resources to shift into this.
Yeah, I think shining a light on prioritization and timing, those two things will help you explain to them, or at least let you lead them down the path to mapping that out for you. Maybe then they'll realize, you know, like, shit, you know, actually we're not going to hit this deadline. So let's look at alternative solutions.
And besides, for the 80-20 principles, probably if we can, just like what we have said, that if we can prioritize it and have the major feature out of the door, we can still kind of meet the target.
So how important are all of these additional features?
Or use that as a label to follow up with the question that we just designed. Say like, you know, it sounds like these features are paramount to delivering this product on time.
I like that. Even if it turns into kind of a mislabel, it's like, no, we need the deadline, not the features.
Right. Exactly.
I like that.
What's nice about this is it very much is a choice for them then. You're not giving them any news.
Right.
You're not telling anything that they don't want to hear, because excuse me, you haven't actually told them the deadlines are being missed. They get to make that choice themselves. It's either we have to pare back some of these features or we miss the deadline. And they're very smart, probably well-paid people who are very qualified to make these types of decisions. And, you know, they're clearly very smart folks, and you're deferring to their wisdom. You know, what's the move?
And also they can change the story and communicate further and only deliver the key features.
I think you need to bring on Sui to your team.
Yeah, seriously.
Heck yeah, I'm down.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see how this plays out. So let's.
Yeah, I'm eagerly going to be awaiting updates on this one.
Deal. Yeah, I should be meeting with them Monday or Tuesday. So
There we
John, I'll
go.
be reporting.
Tuesdays are day. We'll get all sorts of posts.
Yeah, John and I will be reporting in then.
Excellent. I'll be on a beach in St. Bart's, but I'm gonna check. Check LinkedIn.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. Who's next?
Cool. Yeah. Who wants to go?
Now, Daniel, I thought you were an assertive. Shouldn't this silence have immediately had you
Well,
raising your hand?
I'm actually been working a lot on my weakness. There's this quiz out there to let you know what kind of negotiator type you are and your strengths and weakness. My strength is agility, very creative, which makes sense. I've done a lot of improv. I love attention, being the center stage. My biggest weakness is listening. So yeah, I'm over here scratching the table and biting my nails and all that, but holding up well. I do the EFT stuff, you know, the tapping to keep emotions under control. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, patting myself on the back for keeping quiet for so long.
Well, how about you? You want to go?
No, I'll best for last.
Best for last.
So it looks like I have to, well, I don't really have a big problem. It's just that from time to time, I do some career coach with a colleague and friends and so on. And I have a old colleague, she is a cloud architect, but she got so fed up with all these things. So she said, okay, I'm going to quit the job and I'm going to work on a startup in IoT. And I kind of wondering how much do you know about IoT that you can kind of start up something instead of continue your architected role. And we kind of back and forth in many discussions and we went nowhere. And I'm going to have a call with her again tonight. And it looks like she really wants to change jobs. Of course, if I ask her, how much do you really know about Internet of Things in order to make a product, it seems like pretty offensive too.
So what are you, I don't want to ask what the outcome is, but what is another good way to think about building thought-shaping questions is to first think about, if you weren't asking them a question and you were basically telling them some stuff, laying them out a plan, what would that plan be? What are you attempting to convey?
Okay, so if that is the case, then I may ask, what is your like startup plan? What do you have in mind to get going? Or can I say, who else have you discussed with regarding to this startup?
It sounds like your biggest concern was this person failing.
I don't think she's going to make it, right? But if she just hates her job so much, she just kind of throw everything on the ground and trying to work on something exciting. And she saw somebody was playing with some IoT stuff and she thought it was pretty interesting.
So seems like you really care about your friend and you don't want her to do something she's going to regret.
Yeah, stupid, yeah.
So if you were really talking to her and like asking the questions, you'd say, why are you making such irresponsible choices that are based on emotion as opposed, or something along those lines? It sounds like that's really what you want, what you'd want to be saying. Or in a perfect world, you'd have her say, you know, I just realized something. This is a fundamentally irresponsible move that's going to lead in failure and tears. And I need to change my ways on this.
that's unsolicited advice. You should say something like, what are you really hoping to achieve by taking on this work?
There, exactly.
Okay, how about if I have one step backwards by saying, it seems like you have a midlife crisis. She's like 40 something.
Yeah, I mean, you can always start out with a label or something. I think I just jumping into it with the question. I think what are you hoping to achieve by taking this on? I think that'll make.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the things I was saying, Sunhee, that might be what you're really thinking, and that can help guide you to the questions you want to ask. But if you look at what Michael's saying, is that opens the door. Why does she want to do this? She's probably not going to talk about how it's an incredibly profitable thing or a brilliant career move. She's probably going to start talking about passion and desire.
Right.
Maybe why she doesn't like her job. Maybe why she's feeling unfulfilled, right?
Okay. Right. Great. Thanks a lot.
And then, of course, then you can start thinking about some of the
Yeah.
labels you might want to use. And how
Or maybe join her ventures.
Yeah, there you go. Who knows? Why not, right?
Yeah.
Michael, anything else?
No, just consider what her response might be and be prepared with a few follow-up labels. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But also to re-emphasize that point from Derek, to really hang on to key labels and key things she says, to not be so focused on the next steps and the next labels and questions that you miss kind of the identity that she's trying to say. Here's like what matters to her, what her stresses are, all that.
Sounds like starting something on your own is really important to you.
That's a good one. Sounds like something's on your own. And that could open doors as well.
All right, Dan, you ready?
Yeah. Try to avoid neediness. This is a want. I want to get this deal done. The problem is this referral is my ex-girlfriend's brother. And my wife is super jealous, doesn't want any communication with. And she's like, what if I talk to my ex-boyfriend's family? How would you feel? And all this stuff. Well, he just called me seriously out of nowhere, and he's got about $900,000 of real estate transaction that he needs done. And I helped him before. Really easy guy to work with, easy money. We got a baby on the way, no brainer. So it's all emotional. She doesn't want, I don't know what she's thinking, that she's going to show up at the house and like, So I prepared some accusation audit. One of them is, no, not accusation, label would be, and I used this before. I hope it's not wearing out with her. It seems like you don't trust me, or it seems like there's no trust. Yeah, it seems like there's no trust. And that has helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Where she used to go through my phone. It's just annoying. So
Right.
I got her to stop doing that with that label. And now I'm like, is the power of labels still there? Is she wearing thin from labels?
I think maybe something like, it seems like you want me to leave money on the table.
Well, to go deeper, like it sounds like she's feeling threatened by this. So maybe go for that. Like, it sounds like you feel she's a threat to our marriage. It sounds like you feel threatened by this situation. Like, what's below the surface level? Like, what are kind of the core identity and emotional things that are really eating at her and making her uncomfortable in this?
I like that a lot.
Feels like you're insecure. No, it feels like there might be some insecurity. I try to remove the you and I and make it more like about the situation.
Yeah, but she wants
Feels
safety.
like the situation can cause some insecurity.
She wants safety and autonomy. That's like people's drivers, or they want to keep themselves safe. They want to keep themselves autonomous, the ability to decide. And so sounds like you're not restricting her decisions, but so there's probably something that she feels threatened by in this situation. Until you get a that's right on it, I don't think it's gonna disappear. At least in arguments I've had with my wife, until I know like what is really at the core, the emotional, like what's off, what you're just feeling
Yeah,
threatened by, whatever. It
The,
doesn't.
the trust thing is definitely the surface. I think the next layer would be threat. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think that seems like you feel like she might be a threat to our marriage, something like that.
But
I'm gonna.
to
s-
keep
I'm gonna
go-
s- No, go ahead.
oh, please, are you kidding me? Keep going.
Oh, once I've used this one with her before and it worked great. I'm gonna try to repackage it. Maybe it went something like, it seems like you want your daughter to have a fatherless upbringing. And she's like, no, like I would not do that to, and come to find out, she learned that the only reason her mom stayed with her father was because of the kids, or else she's like, I wouldn't be with a loudmouth alcoholic, not anymore, you know, this and that if it wasn't for the kids. So it caused her to get curious on her family. So that one has worked wonders for me. Might have to use it again. It's a big deal.
I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of mastery around the labels, right? I mean, in terms of the
Oh, yeah.
question,
I mean, I went from the bottom 3 to top 3 with this stuff. You know, this is gold. People's lives were lost building these tool sets.
I mean, it seems like what you really want is for her to trust you and also let you do this deal so you can provide money for your unborn child.
Yeah, the last thing I want to hear is cheap shots from her, like, oh, it's dirty money. This is money from your, like, I don't know, like money's money. Like, I don't want it to be.
Something, this isn't right because it's not a single 4-line question or something really simple. It is like a couple statements followed by a question. And if you all could help wordsmith this, I think it could be valuable. I want to be a good husband and I want to respect your wishes. I also want to be a really good father and provide for our children. How do you want me to proceed?
She's an accommodator. She will love that calibrated question.
Because you love her, you love your child. They have conflicting wants and needs at the moment. And she gets to pick if she is going to be comfortable, which she can, and you won't take the money, or the child can have a better life. And then that's her choice that she gets to make. But again, that's not really a full-on calibrated. I mean, I guess it is. Michael, help me out here. Is that really a calibrated question or a thought-shaping question? Wow.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little distracted. What were you hoping to explain to her? That you're leaving money on the table? Is that it?
Yeah, that, you know, I want to take this deal and I want her to be good about it and not taking cheap shots after I close the deal or during the transaction.
I think it's something like, what's your vision? You know,
I see you're saying, wow, I can really trust you with any clientele. You're very loyal. You really do care about being a father for our firstborn, and you're stepping up and getting these deals done that are big value. Because yeah, if it was 200K, yeah, you know, you can go, you know, no problem. I wouldn't care about using these tools on, you know, I wouldn't bother using them on a small deal. So if it's a big deal, I'm going to bring these tools out.
So question, you've mentioned cheap shots. It sounds like you know all the cheap shots.
She's an expert at cheap shots. So if I don't swan her, I know later on it's gonna be something. I spend the money or I show the money. She's gonna be like, "Oh, that's dirty money. You got that because of your ex. If it wasn't for your ex, you wouldn't have that money." You know how it goes.
It sounds like you have an accusation on it, just waiting to whip out. You've got your list. You know all of her objectives.
I'm trying to think of the worst thing. Slimy. Slimy's always been a good one. I've been called slimy once, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a beautiful accusation on it." Look, it might seem like I'm slimy here. I don't want her to. Yeah, it might seem slimy that I'm willing to deal with my ex's relatives for the sake of, you know, a $30,000 connection. So maybe I could say that. It's gonna feel slimy that I'm gonna take on this transaction.
So I had a prescription for.
Yeah. Just all the things you think she might say later, say them up front. And then a thought shaping question that came to mind is, how can I do this deal in a way that makes you feel safe?
I like that.
That's good.
I like that. I like it a lot. Well,
That's good.
Dan, you'll have to report back to us on that one.
Yeah, when are you gonna have that
If he-
doozy of a conversation?
If he comes
Well-
to the next session with like a neck cast on, then we know it didn't really work out.
No, no. I bludgeoned her with these tools before. I think it'll go well.
Cool. All right, I think we're coming up on the end of the hour here. So I think we have some good takeaways. You know, just breaking it down how we broke it down today is, you know, what would you want to explain to the counterparty, and then thinking about asking them a calibrated question and being prepared with a few labels afterwards, which should set you up for success. So I'm excited to hear about John's situation, Jacob, your situation,
Amazing.
Dan, your situation, and Adeline moving forward, you know, being prepared to follow up with a few labels.
Very nice. So this is actually the first session we've recorded. So we're in the process of figuring out where these can live, so you can go back and take a look at them. And we're also in the process of actually looking to set up some EMEA specific sessions at more agreeable EMEA focused times for anyone on the call who is in EMEA. I know there's at least one of you who is, so expect some more information on that as well.
And with the where we're posting them, we did just set up a YouTube channel earlier today, and so we'll be getting the link to this sent out soon.
Very nice.
And please don't send it to my wife until at least a week.
That's right. Awesome. All right, guys. Good to see everybody. Get in the group, post some stuff in there, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.